Those people. That's what I was saying. I was trying to get coffee in there.
Live, I think so.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So we go.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for all coming live and all online, and those of you who are perhaps watching this as a recording. Let us begin with our chant. Om Sato Ma Sadgamaya Maso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityarma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness unto light, lead us from death to mortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. So, this is the part 2 of our delve into the mystery of Divine Mother. So, whatever she reveals that she wants to reveal today, then that's what we're going to do. We never have a hard and fast plan on these talks. They're always spontaneous, so silly surprises. But yeah, I think one of the things that we discussed last week, I think it was last week, wasn't it? The week before that, whenever we had the part 1 of this. And that is, if you think about a natural relationship that we have that's programmed into us from millennia of lifetimes, they say, millions of lifetimes, is that we're used to having nurturing and the most deepest connection of loving relationships with our mother. And that's even into the animal kingdom, if you look at it. Obviously, the male goes off and hunts or whatever they do. And for the most part, it's the female who is the close protection and feeding and caring and all these. Even in the womb, you're surrounded by the mother. She is everything. She supports you in every way. And a lot of, everything that is your genetic material, except for the small little bits that come in from the conception, is all mother. So if you really think about it, it's probably the most natural relationship once we start going into a divine search to create that ideal of God as mother. And so it's actually a very natural thing, I find, for a lot of people. Now in the West, it was kind of cut off for lots of reasons we won't get into, but there was always a female deity, a female goddess, or the mother image throughout antiquity, a lot of different religions and a lot of different traditions that were created. And in the West, for some reason, they were cut off. There is Mother Mary, which is wonderful, and in Catholicism, you have these beautiful stories of Mother Mary coming and giving blessings and grace, and even today, Catholics will pray to Mother Mary as a way to intercede with her son, Jesus, some kind of a middle person type of thing, if you will. But she's still not the deity. She's not the person that you're focusing on completely. So, the West had some kind of there was an issue with women in a sense, in that they kind of put them aside. But it's really cost a lot, if you think about it, because, you look at the Western psyche in a way, and there is a searching for that nourishing, total, feeling of security, that feeling of protection, that feeling of everything you need. A lot of times is kind of harsh. The religion takes on a little harshness to it if that's absent. And Swami Vivekananda said, civilization is judged by how it treats the female population, as far as the health, as far as the evolution and the cultural, levels. That is, to honor women is a really high achievement in civilization. Those civilizations that put women into a secondary role are suffering gravely. So that's kind of where we start off with Divine Mother, the mystery of Divine Mother. It's just the very beginning steps, if you will, that if you have this inclination of God and you really are searching for some meaning and some connection to God, instead of an intellectual thing, not a scriptural reading, not some kind of theological knowledge, not some kind of a bigger vocabulary, but if your heart is aching and you're really wanting something to heal that aching heart that we all have. The mother is a really wonderful dive in, and it can take you to so many places and the adventure of spirituality. And so the Indian tradition is the most ancient lineage of traditions, most continuous civilization, as Swami Sarvapriyanandaji points out, in the world today. All of her contemporaries are gone. Babylonia, Egypt, ancient Egypt civilization, all these places that were contemporaries, ancient Greece, all of these places that had, goddesses and female deities are now no longer. And so whatever their tradition and religion and wisdom were are gone. What's beautiful about the Indian tradition is that has passed down to us. It's like a time capsule that was handed over to us from early days. And it's interesting because the Indian tradition has within it some kind of a guidepost to what really happened. And it says that evolution isn't just a linear event in the Indian tradition. It says evolution is a secular event. There's cycles of higher and lower ages in our world. And so there was times in the ancient past that were higher ages than ours in understanding in general, as population in general. There was a deeper connection to our inner being. There was a deeper connection to truth. There was a deeper understanding. And then there's times when we go away from that into lower ages, and the Middle Ages were supposedly the most recent Dark Ages. And so we lose all of that beautiful wisdom that was stored up from those higher ages, and only symbols survive. But in some of the Indian scriptures and the Indian teachings are like a sacred time capsule that were hidden in India of some very, very valuable wisdom that was lost. And what was really beautiful in the idea of what Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda initiated was kind of a renaissance where that time capsule was opened, not only for India, but to the world. So what we have now is, instead of a lot of mythology, symbolism, some beautiful scriptural things that were in the West, about Jesus being forgiving and all these types of things that are there, and some other relationships. But we have the actual understanding of what is the essence of religion, again, which is who are we? Where did we come from? Where are we going? What is our relationship to everything? What is our own inner consciousness? Are we even aware of how we are? What are we experiencing? These are all delineated in Hinduism, in the scriptures, in ways that are accessible to the evolution of each individual. So they can be very basically presented for those who that's their digestive power. As Sri Ramakrishna talked about, the child needs to have just formula. That's all they can digest. So the mother gives that child formula, something simple, easy to digest. Then as the child gets older, they can have more complex types of nourishment and understandings. And so more and more of this whole concept of what reality is explained to the devotee and to us as we go along in our evolutionary path. And what's beautiful about the Indian religion is that almost everything is in it. I would have to say it. Every approach is there. From atheism, where you're just so mad at God for not knowing the truth, which is a legitimate stage. You don't want to just believe anymore. You want to know. So atheism isn't a bad thing. It could be a really good thing. It's like, okay, I don't want to just believe. I don't want to be told what to think anymore. I want to know. So it's kind of like a rebellious child saying, I don't even believe in you anymore. It's legitimate. It's not something horrible. It's a simple understandable stage when you've been hit by not knowing for so long. Yeah, Lord, you better tell me what's going on. This is not going to continue anymore. It's a beautiful stage of turning within. And so it's honored in scripture, in Indian scripture, not even understood in the West, except for scientists are supposed to be atheists and all these kinds of things. But in all paths, the simple devotional paths are all delineated. Mother, child, father, mother, of course, lover, upon lover, there's the mother-child relationship. All these have been divinized, so that they are expressed in the way of a divine lila, of a divine interaction. And you can divinize any relationship to be one of guide and the devotee. So the guide is the mother, and the guide is the child, and the mother is taking care of the child. That's one of the paths of devotion in the Hindu scriptures. It's really beautiful. So there's all of these things. But what we're really going to focus on here, because it comes to the tradition of the Ramakrishna path as well as many of the others, is that the mother god, goddess of Kali, and all the forms of Ma are really beautiful. And they have such a depth, and they can take you from where you are to kind of as deep as you want to go. Because I'll read to you a little bit about Sri Ramakrishna's understanding of Ma. And it's actually a little bit different than what we might think. Because you think that, oh, he was just a simple guy. These are simple people, and they just want their mother, or they have a mother complex or whatever it is. That's not it at all. It's such a deep thing. And Ma Kali, as the first manifestation, because she is everything. She is all of creation, the good parts, the light, the dark, the horrible parts. You have to have both to have any kind of a manifestation. You can't have light without dark. You can't have good without bad. They're just not possible to exist by themselves. What is happening outside of those two is the unmanifest and indescribable. So to have any projection whatsoever, both have to be present. So Ma Kali is everything. And you have the terrible and the beautiful aspects of Ma Kali. And so she is everything, including anything beyond what is just that absolute infinite consciousness that is the substratum of everything. She's everything else. So what that is beyond is indescribable. But what Ma is everything. That means us too. Our thoughts, our minds, our personalities, our bodies, all the different subtle bodies. That's all Ma. All these things, this is Ma. And so to see Ma in that way, and we'll read a little bit here from one of the books that really described it. You understand why Sri Ramakrishna sees Ma the way he does in the beginning, as consciousness, as this indivisible consciousness, not as a nice lady that's standing there, but as this amazing infinite consciousness that is Ma. But within that lila, within that play, when we are created, we have limited ourselves, and we've gone through eons of experience of all the different manifestations of evolution. You have the basic mineral, we experience the minerals. And this is all part of the Indian philosophy. So you have the mineral, creations. We experience that by observing it. As it got more and more complex, we observed that the first nitrogen, the first organic molecules, we experienced that as it congealed into suns and to stellar systems. We observed those things. As it became separate into these planets, we observed that as the planets became solid, we observed that. As they started to form solid water and land, we observed that. As there was actual, conscious life, or in our unconscious life, that all life has some consciousness. Even in the molecules, we observed it. As it became more complex, we observed every step of the way. That's why it stated it takes billions of lifetimes to get to the human body, to get to this place where we have a differentiated consciousness that is an illusion, because it's borrowed consciousness from the one indivisible consciousness. But you have to have this huge illusion to pretend that there's other people, because there isn't. There's really just one that's pretending to be all of this. So we have this borrowed illusion of individuality and free will and all of these things that we have. And so we have certain needs once you're within this confines of this creation. And it's a really hard world. There's darkness in every stage of it. There's animals eating animals. There's deaths of stars. There's things that are just seem mean and cruel that are part of creation. There's darkness, utter, huge darkness. There's the only way to have the light really be expressed in goodness is because there's some contrast. That's also part of this whole thing. And so when we're needing something, when we're needing that, it's a beautiful expression of besides Ma Kali, That's why we have Ma Durga, which is, and Ma Lakshmi and Ma Saraswati. There's other manifestations, but they're some of the more common versions, because what do we need? Ma Durga is our protection. She saves our butts when we need it, you know. When I was driving a little fast coming back here from Arizona, and a police officer stopped me, and I told him I was a volunteer for the Las Vegas Police Department. I was just really nice to him, and he said, "Well, you were going pretty fast, but I'm just going to write you for 75, because then you won't have any points off your license. You won't have to worry about anything. You'll just pay an $80 fine and it's finished." And I thought, you know. And
Thanks, Mom.
you're right. There's countless times when those things happen. I just realized, you know, when you surrender completely, Ma always has your back, always. And then you pray for those who really need that help. But Ma Durga is such a beautiful expression of that, right? And you don't have to think of Ma Durga. You can think Ma is Ma, right? But it's just part of her, an aspect of her personality. It's the same mother. And then you have Ma Lakshmi. You know, you're in this physical world, you need support. You need to have the ability of energy and be able to have freedom to do what you need to do and pay bills and all these horrible things that are there. So I think that Ma Lakshmi is, you know, we all have needs. We have needs to be able to be sustained. And she is our sustenance. And there's beautiful stories of all the saints. Sri Ramakrishna talked about having Mathura as one of the keepers of stores. So he provided everything that he needed. And there was different ones that had this title, keeper of stores. Yoganandaji, Paramahansa Yogananda in his autobiography talks about countless times when he would leave home and be dependent on God's grace to exist. And his brother put a test for him. He said, God will take care of him, because he came from a rich household. And his brother said, "Oh, if it wasn't for Dad's money, you wouldn't be so cocky, you know, you're such a spoiled brat." So he just went out, and he was supposed to go to a tour of the city where he didn't even know anybody. And he and his companion went. The companion was supposed to be his to test, you know, make sure he didn't do anything wrong. And it was one miracle after another that happened. And he ended up coming back to his brother, because one of the people that he met along the way was to realize that he was his guru, and he gave him some money that he needed to go for like train tickets and all this. So when he came back, and he forced Yogananda to take the money. It wasn't named Yogananda then, he was a young boy then. But he went back to his brother, and he was shocked just to see him walk in on the appointed time. And not only that, but he put rupee notes down. And his brother was shocked. He goes, "I can't believe," he goes, he talked to his companion, "Did he rob a bank? You know, how did he get this money?" And he told him the whole story, and he goes, "Oh, the divine cause and effect, sustenance, goes deeper than I realized." And his brother became a devotee of Yoganandaji at that time. So there's so many pure devotees who really just providence and to the divine, and they do the best they can. They're not living for their own self. They're living and they're benefiting everybody by their life. So of course, the rule. You have Ma Saraswati, and a long time to understand the really beauty of Ma Saraswati, because she's the mother of learning, and she's the mother of arts and expression of music and all these things, poetry, scripture. And I was trying to really understand what Ma Saraswati truly was. And then I understood something. There's all this craziness, all this horribleness, all this beauty. What is it for? It's so that there can be an expression of the divine nature, the divine amazing essence of wisdom, of compassion, of love, pure love, of all these things. Find an expression at all. Otherwise, you can't express any of that. It's not possible. So this whole creation seems to be created so that this Ma Saraswati, this divine expression, can come through each separate point of consciousness in a completely different way, in a unique way, so that it's expressed infinitely. And it's a beautiful concept of Ma Saraswati then. So all of this has a purpose. And so, of course, there's many worlds, as they say, you know, in the scriptures. This is the most solid world, they say. There's other places that are issues, but most of the other worlds are much easier. But you can only stay there a certain period of time, depending on what your good karma is. And then you come back to this world where you have to pass your final exam, apparently, according to Vivekanandaji. These kind of places are where there's so much mixture of evolutionary beings, different kinds of beings. And a lot of the other astral worlds, they're pretty much graded into temperaments and understanding and evolutionary expression and all these types of things. So, you know, some of the worlds, there's not a stimulus to learn. You can only learn when there's contrast. So this is really the greatest place to learn. So, so this idea of Divine Mother has so many levels. And I'll read a little bit now from this book. I have a couple that I'm going to show you, just to see how Sri Ramakrishna sees Divine Mother. And then we'll kind of go into it a little deeper. And at the end here, we'll chant to Divine Mother a little bit together and see if we can call on her according to our own lights, how we figure it out. But this is a great book if you guys don't have it. It's the first book I ever read about Sri Ramakrishna. I was in an ashram of Yoganandaji's Self-Realization Fellowship in 1981, and somebody handed me this as a gift. It's called Ramakrishna and His Disciples. And it's by Christopher Isherwood, who was a disciple of Prabhupada, and a great, really, it was a great communicator, a great author. And so this is what he wrote, and it's really beautiful. And I'll read a little more of this because it's so profound. I'll try to read parts of this. This is called the Vision of Kali. It was that at the age of 20, Ramakrishna suffered a second great bereavement. Ram Kumar, who had been even more than an elder brother to him, he had stood, especially during the past 4 years, in the place of Ramakrishna's father. Ramakrishna's father died when Ramakrishna was much younger, some years before that. So Ram Kumar was a priest. They were Brahmins, so they made their living by being priests. Ram Kumar got a job in the Ramakrishna in the Kali temple of Dakshineswar. And so he brought, reluctantly, his brother there. His brother was this rebel. He didn't want to have anything to do with priesting, shall we say. The young man's mind, after the death of Ram Kumar, the young man's mind, Ramakrishna, now turned altogether away from the world and its impermanence. So he became wounded in soul after both of their deaths. Towards the one resource which he believed to be unfailing, he became passionately resolved to obtain the vision of Kali, the Divine Mother, to know the reality within the image that he worshipped daily in the shrine. And that's a picture of the actual image that he was worshiping as a professional priest. To know the reality, obsessed by the love he felt for Kali and by his desire to see her, he spent every moment that he could in the temple. And when the doors had to be closed according to custom at midday and at night, he avoided the company of others and wandered off alone into the jungle thickets, which covered the northern end of the temple property. Fride now became concerned. Fride was his cousin, who watched out for him. He was kind of a complicated personality, but we have Ramakrishna because of Fride in some ways. He became concerned, for he saw that Ramakrishna was neither sleeping nor eating sufficiently. And he knew that his uncle was in the habit of going off into the jungle, a thing which nobody else, I'm sorry, not cousin, he was his nephew, a thing which nobody else at Dakshineswar would willingly do, especially at night. Since the place had formerly been a graveyard, you might expect to meet ghosts there. One night, the devoted youth put aside his own fears, this is Fride, and followed Ramakrishna at a distance. In order to scare him to turning back, Fride threw some pebbles and gravel after him. They fell around Ramakrishna, who ignored them and went out into the thicket. The next day, Fride asked his uncle outright what he had been doing in such a sinister spot in the middle of the night. Ramakrishna then explained to him that the Amalaki tree which bears the astringent plum-like fruit, grew there, and that, according to scriptures, anyone meditating beneath the Amalaki will have his dearest wish fulfilled. Ramakrishna was meditating under the tree in order to get his vision of Kali, the inner vision of Kali, not just the image that was in the temple. Kriya became increasingly distressed by his uncle's austerities. Being himself temperamentally unable to understand this kind of devotional obsession, he felt that Ramakrishna was going beyond the bounds of propriety and even standing. And his feeling was shared to some extent by almost everybody at Dakshineswar. Their head priest was taking his religion more seriously than they thought he should. On another occasion, Hriday went into the jungle when he knew that Ramakrishna was already there. He found his uncle seated in meditation under the Amalaki. Ramakrishna had taken off his dhoti and even the sacred thread which he wore as a Brahman, and was sitting there stark naked. Hriday was so scandalized that he roused Ramakrishna from the depths of his meditation and reproached him. Had he gone mad to do such a thing? Ramakrishna replied calmly that this was the right way to meditate. Man labors from his birth under 8 forms of bondage. He told Hriday they are hatred, shame, fear, doubt, aversion, self-righteousness, pride in one's lineage, and pride in one's caste status. All these forms of bondage tie man's mind down to the worldly thoughts and desires and prevents him from rising his mind to spiritual things. The sacred thread reminds a man that he belongs to the highest caste, that of the Brahmins. Therefore, it makes him proud of his birth, and so it must be discarded along with every other pretension, possession, desire, and aversion before one can approach the mother in meditation. Literalness was characteristic of Ramakrishna. He was never content with a merely mental renunciation. The thought must be accompanied by a deed. Just as he had discarded his clothes and his sacred thread, so on other occasions he performed other acts of renunciation and self-mortification, which were equally drastic. For example, in order to humble his caste pride, he cleaned out a privy with his own hands. That's the toilet. Of course, the Indian toilets are pretty rough. And they say he cleaned it with his hair, because he had really long hair at that time, so he cleaned it all.
Wow.
That's the deeper meaning of this, okay?
Yeah.
Throwing a little bit of maybe TMI, I don't know, but his own hand was then. In order to affirm his beliefs that the divine is present within all beings, he ate the prasad, the remains of the food which the poor had been given outside the Kali temple, carried the leaves they had used as plates upon his head for disposal, and kept himself swept and washed the eating place clean. Now, you have to understand that Brahmins would lose their caste to do anything remotely like this. So this was how strict it was in India at those days, that you would lose your caste and you wouldn't be considered a Brahmin anymore. So he wouldn't care about that, obviously. In order to learn to regard the so-called valuable and so-called worthless with impartial indifference, he took in one hand some old clods of earth and in the other some coins. These he threw into the Ganges, repeating to himself, "Rupee is dirt, dirt is rupee," over and over again. Ramakrishna was now entering upon that phase of life which is characterized by sadhana, the period of spiritual discipline. All the great religious teachers have passed through such a phase. One need only instance the wanderings and austerities of the Buddha, and those years of Christ's early manhood which were passed over in the gospel narrative. Years of retirement among the Essenes, if the scholars' latest theories are correct, or in India. Except in the cases of Buddha and Chaitanya, no such sadhana has been recorded in detail. This may well be because the devotees of later times did not wish to show their ideal in the throes of temptation, spiritual anguish, and despair. They did not wish to show an incarnation of God behaving like a human being. This has never been the attitude of the truly great devotees, however. Such devotees have even felt unwilling to dwell on the power and majesty of God, lest awe should interfere with their devotion. The Orthodox Hindu view is that an incarnation is all the time fully conscious of his divinity, so that whatever he does is only a kind of play acting, a lila. But Sardananda does not altogether agree with this view. That's one of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Sharvana. The avatar's sufferings and moments of weakness are not simulated. Coming into the world with absolute knowledge of the reality, he assumes the ignorance and the weakness of ordinary men in order to be an example to others by transcending them. Nevertheless, says Sarvananda, the incarnations of God are aware, even from their birth, that they are other than ordinary people. And this knowledge gives them immense compassion for all who are in bondage to worldly desires. It is to help them that the incarnation performs this sadhana. Ramakrishna used to tell this story. 3 men went walking in a field. In the middle of a field, there was a place surrounded by a high wall. Within this wall came the sounds of music. Instruments were playing and voices sang. The men were charmed by it and wanted to see what was happening. But there was no door anywhere in the wall. What were they to do? One of the men found a ladder somewhere and climbed to the top of the wall, while the other 2 waited below. When the man who was at the top of the wall saw what was happening inside, he was beside himself with joy. He even forgot to tell the 2 below what he saw. He uttered a loud laugh and jumped down inside. The others 2 exclaimed, "A fine friend he is. He didn't tell us what he saw. We'll have to look for ourselves." So the second man climbed the ladder. And like the first man, he looked over the wall and burst out laughing in joy and jumped. So what was the third man to do? He too climbed the ladder and looked over the wall and saw what was on the other side. It was like a mart of happiness, given free to all comers. His first thought was to jump down and join the rejoicing. But then he said to himself, "If I do that, no one outside will ever know that this place of joy exists. Am I to be the only one to find it?" So he forced his mind away from the sight, and he came down the ladder and began telling everyone he met. In there is the mart of happiness. Come with me, let's enjoy it together. So he took everybody with him, and they all partook in the rejoicing. Ramakrishna was accustomed to teach that the whole purpose of sadhana was to become able to see Brahman in all things, everywhere. Sadhana ultimately is the effort to know the universal cause beyond time and space. We ordinary mortals see only the multiplicity of beings, but not the one eternal substratum. We see multiplicity instead of unity because we are ignorant. We are ignorant because we are within Maya, the web of seeming which has been put forth by the power of Brahman. This ignorance should not be thought of as an individual delusion. It is shared by all who are within Maya. That is why our perceptions are roughly identical. If I think I see a table, then so do you. Our ignorance consists in being unable to see that the table is essentially Brahman, and that nothing but Brahman exists. But through this ignorance, though this ignorance is shared, any one of us can individually escape from it, thus reach freedom. It is said that there are 2 main paths of sadhana, the path of discrimination and the path of devotion. Since the knowledge that life ends in death has always been common to mankind, it is probable that discrimination was practiced before devotion. For discrimination consists in rejecting all that is impermanent in order to come at last, by a process of elimination, to the permanent substratum, the reality. The Buddha began his search in this way. After his first contact with sickness, old age, and death had made him realize the impermanence of human life. It has been said, therefore, that the path of discrimination can be described as saying, not this, meaning that nothing in the world of phenomena is permanent, that all must be rejected. The path of devotion, on the other hand, is described by saying this, because the devotee is constantly reminding himself that he is everywhere in the presence of Brahman. In saying this, he is not disagreeing with the man of discrimination. He does not worship phenomena as phenomena. He worships the reality behind the phenomena. We find followers of these 2 paths in all the world's religions. The difference between them is really one of temperament. It is the nature of some people to arrive at truth by means of intellect, of others to arrive at it by means of love. But these 2 paths have led countless men and women to union with the reality. This unitive experience has been the goal of every true mystic. The Buddhists call it nirvana, the Christians, the mystic union, the Hindus, samadhi. So it talks a lot about samadhi, and we won't go to all of that. So we'll just go down to the description of Sri Ramakrishna and his vision of Kali. As the months of the year 1856 went by, Ramakrishna's spiritual efforts became more and more intense. Addressing the image of Kali in the temple, he exclaimed piteously, "Mother, you showed yourself to Ram Prasad and other devotees of the past. Why won't you show yourself to me? Why won't you show yourself to me? Why won't you grant my prayer? I have been praying to you so long." And he wept bitterly. "Oh, what days of suffering I went through," Ramakrishna used to say, as he recalled these periods of in after years. "You can't from mother. But of gold in a room, and the thief in the next room, with only a thin the thief sleep in peace? Won't he try to burst?" That was the state I was in. I knew mother was there, quite close. How could I want anything else? She is infinite happiness. Beside her, all the world's wealth is nothing. Often before the shrine, he became absorbed and stopped performance of the ritual, sitting motionless for hours at a time. Because of this, some of the temple officials became impatient with him. Others laughed at him as a half-crazy fool, but Mathur was impressed. Mathur was the son-in-law of Rani Rashmani, the woman who built the Kali temple, and he ran her business empire, and that included the Kali temple. But he was also a very spiritual person himself, and he told this to Rani. "We have got a wonderful devotee for the worship of our goddess. Very soon he will awaken her." Before long, Mathur was proved right. This is how Ramakrishna described the experience. "There was an unbearable pain in my heart. I couldn't get the vision of mother. Just as a man wrings out a towel with all his, so I felt as if my heart and mind were being wrung. I began to think I should never see mother. I was dying of despair. In my agony, I said to myself, what's the use of having this life? Suddenly, my eyes fell on the sword that hangs in the temple. I decided to end my life with it, there and then. Like a madman, I ran to it and seized it. And then I had a marvelous vision of the mother. I fell down unconscious. It was as if houses, doors, temples, and everything else vanished altogether, as if there was nothing anywhere. And what I saw was an infinite, shoreless sea of light, a sea that was consciousness. However far and whatever direction I looked, I saw shining waves, one after another, coming towards me. They were raging and storming upon me with great speed. Very soon they were upon me. They made me sink down into the unknown depths. I panted and struggled and lost consciousness. It is not quite clear from Ramakrishna's narrative whether or not he actually saw the form of Mother Kali in the midst of his vision of shining consciousness, but it would seem that he did, because the first words that he uttered on coming to himself were, "Mother, Mother." So I thought now would be a good time to do our first chant. There's a song that we have in our books called "Will This Day Come to Me, Ma?" And this is actually a song by Ram Prasad, so it's quite appropriate now after we come to that. So we think about our own longing for Ma and our desire for her vision and that beautiful, overwhelming experience. So we'll sing, "Will This Day Come to Me, Ma?" Will that day come to me, Ma? Will that day come to me, Ma? When you say, "Mother dear," my eyes will flow tears. When saying, "Mother dear," my eyes will flow tears. Wisdom's burdens will blossom forth, darkness will steal away. Wisdom's burdens will blossom forth, darkness will steal away. Steal away, steal away, steal away, Ma, steal away. Steal away, steal away, Ma, steal away. 1,000 vedas do declare, divine mothers everywhere. 1,000 vedas do declare, my mothers everywhere. Sri Ram Prasad said, divine mother everywhere stays. Sri Ram Prasad says, my mother everywhere stays. Blind eyes see them all, hiding everywhere. Blind eyes see them all, hiding everywhere. Will that day come to me, Ma? Will that day come to me, Ma? When saying, Mother dear, my eyes will flow with tears. When saying, Mother dear, my eyes will flow with tears. Heart's lotus will blossom for darkness will steal away. Heart's lotus will blossom for darkness will steal away. Steal away, steal away, steal away, Ma, steal away. Steal away, steal away, steal away, Ma, steal away. Steal away, steal away, steal away, Ma, steal away. Okay, this is too perfect timing. We're getting a call from Lakshmiswar right now from the Kali Temple by my dear friend Pranabji, and it's actually his birthday today. So I'm going to share this all with you. If he can answer, let's see if we get lucky. I noticed on my phone, I watched that he was calling us. And I'm sure he'll call us back, so you'll get a chance to see the actual Kali Ma temple where all this actually happened. Where the sword is and all the things. This is it. Let's see, he might be calling somebody else right now. We'll get in touch with him. There he is. Jai Ma Pranabji, happy birthday! It's tomorrow, isn't it tomorrow? Or today?
No.
Oops, I froze. Tomorrow. Are you there, Pranabji? Okay. Wednesday, okay. I saw it coming up. This is. I'm gonna pass the phone to all the devotees here, Pranabji, so they can see Ma. Here, you can show everybody. This is the actual Kali temple where we're talking about. So she's reached out to you as we were here. You want to take it around? Take it around to everybody so they can see.
It's a,
and you can show maybe you can show the people on the video too.
this is, and see if it,
You can. That's all you're going to see. It's just
Oh,
from the
okay.
side.
so it's kind of the temple is this, that's that image, isn't it?
And you can show people on the video too if you want to. You can
Yeah.
hold it up to the camera.
Yeah. Wait, what am I missing?
Huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's from the side. So yeah.
Gemma.
You want to show the people in the camera?
Oh, that's what you're talking about. I was
Yeah.
like, what are you showing them?
Yeah.
Sorry, you know, I don't.
Just
follow
hold it up to the camera there. You can see
Yeah.
if it's on your screen.
Wait a minute.
See if they get a chance to see.
Yeah.
We want to share the darshan with everybody.
Jai Ma.
Talk about perfect timing.
Right?
Oh, good timing, yeah. That's cool.
Jai Ma. I'll give it to you so we can continue. Jai Ma Pranabji, thank you. That's so perfect. We were just talking about Ma and the Kali Temple in our talk just now. We're here on the shrine with all the beautiful devotees.
Jai Ma.
And we were just talking about the Kali Temple and Sri Ramakrishna, Ma and his first vision of Ma. So it's so perfect timing, Pranav. Ma's.
You're watching the news?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes?
Yeah, connection's a little off than
Jai
it
Ma,
normally
Pranav,
is.
thank you so, so much. Perfect timing. Jai Ma, Ma's perfect. Okay. Jai Ma. Well, you can't ask for more than that.
Right?
Talk about her coming and saying, okay.
Right?
Here I am.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
right
Just
a
here.
blessing.
presenting
That's
to
a
her, and
blessing.
she shows up, right? Oh, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Thank you, Ma. That's too wonderful. So, yeah, it's beautiful as the devotion really starts to center on Ma. There's layers that happen, but it's just things like that are just common. It's just unbelievable that this Ma shows up in so many ways. But the biggest thing is to once you have the consciousness of Ma, there's an infinite happiness and joy and love that it's overwhelming. It's actually almost too much for a heart to bear. It comes from Ma herself. So that's why all of the great ones just say that Ma is beyond. Once you have the internal consciousness, it's beyond conception. There's nothing else that could compare. So being a renunciant is not even an issue because everything is stale in comparison. There's nothing that even compares to that kind of feeling. So I think that's what true renunciation, I think, becomes, is that you start to see this this all-fulfilling nature. But what happens, and this is kind of the play of Ma, is that as we go to her, and this is what Swami Brahmanandaji says in his book, The Eternal Companion. You can read it. He says you have to go to Ma to get to Shiva. And so as you know, Ma is dancing the play of creation, but Shiva is underfoot, near his chest. Well, that basically is symbolic of that we go into the world to see this image of reflected consciousness when it actually just turns itself inside our own being. It turns a mirror onto us. So we're actually looking at our own self for the first time in eons. Our attention's always outward, looking at all this play that we've been dancing around and being enamored in, and thinking that there's some things we need for fulfillment, for happiness, for this and that, and fortune and control and all these things. When in actuality, all they are just reflections of what's already been inside our own consciousness. That's all an essential part of our own nature. And it's never satisfying because you don't want to be stuck in the world. So it's never going to be possible to be satisfied by anything in the world. Even the greatest joys, Punya, they were talking about the greatest astral, celestial beings, worlds are beyond description, gorgeous. And we are able to create our own universes, they say. But that's never enough. It doesn't satisfy us because it's still going upward. Until we turn within, there's no hope for any kind of real, total peace. So this is what Ramakrishna talks about. And so Ma is actually there's very much different layers of Ma. When we go into this first experiences of really absorption into Ma, then I think we start really starting to be absorbed into ourselves. And then we see that what Ma Durga is, as this protectress, we're invulnerable. Our soul, our essence, has nothing can touch it. There's nothing in creation that can touch our awareness. It's invulnerable. It talks about it in the Gita. No fire can burn it. No wind can dry it. Nothing is. It's impervious to anything. So that's what Ma Durga truly is finding that there is nothing. It's that realization that we are invulnerable to anything. There's nothing. It's the internal soul is supreme. With Mahalakshmi, we're totally content. There's nothing we could possibly need. When you need nothing, no, there's nothing that is more valuable than that. You have the greatest riches in the world. And of course, Mahalakshmi, the most beautiful expression of all the divine qualities and all divinity, is percolating within that one awareness, that self. So this is the internal paths. These are, we start off seeing them as mother and different aspects of mother and all these things. But what actually turns itself around is that we've realized our own selves. And this is a couple of things from Sri Krishna. A man attains everything when he discovers his true self in himself. The object of sadhana is to realize that. That also is the purpose of assuming a human body. One needs the clay mold so long as the gold image has not been cast. But when the image is made, the mold is thrown away. The body may be given up after the realization of God. God is not only inside us, he is both inside and outside. The Divine Mother showed me in the Kali temple that everything is Chinmaya, the embodiment of spirit, that it is she who has become all this. The image, myself, the utensils of worship, the door sill, the marble floor, even everything is indeed Chinmaya. The aim of prayer, of spiritual discipline, of chanting the name and glories of God is to realize just that. For that alone, a devotee loves God. So he's talking about that experience. And when you saw that picture, all that is being described. That's where he was physically when this all happened. So, very sweet. And I'll just read a couple of things from this book called Kali, and it's Elizabeth Hugh Harding. You can get this at the Vedanta Society bookstores, or I've had it for years. One of my my most profound possessions. I lost it for a while and I got it back. But it's beautiful because it talks about all of the consciousness, the black goddess of Dakshineswara. So it's an actual book all about Dakshineswara and Ramakrishna's experiences there and all the deeper, profound teachings of Kali. So if you guys get this, if you really want to dive into it. If you ever get to India, by the way, let me know, because we can connect you with Pranabji. He's become a dear friend. He's one of the priests of the Kali temple inside. So he's just become somebody I've known for 30 years, I think, at this point. When I was first there, you could actually go into Ramakrishna's bedroom. You could go in everywhere. Now they kind of close it off, sadly, so you really can't get into some places. But he can welcome you if you guys decide to go. It would be extra special, I can just say. So, but even going there without having a guide, it's really neat. Okay, now this talks about, we talk about the different aspects of Kali. So far it's been an external aspect, but Ma's also talked about as an internal aspect of yoga, Kundalini. So Ma Kali, the goddess Shakti, is also considered to be that serpent power that is sleeping at the base of our spine with our consciousness. And it's stated that you can't have the realization of God without awakening Kundalini. That's one, according to the yoga, the Raja Yoga aspect of path. Now, not everybody's a Raja Yogi, so we don't want to confuse anybody, but this is very important to understand that Ma also is represented in that. So for the ones she chooses, Kali is an experience, an overwhelming experience. She exists as Kundalini and the lightning, and like lightning, she reveals the great power. She is the experience. She is the bliss. She is the giver of bliss. While she can be felt, she can never be defined, because to define her would be to limit the infinite by fitting it according to one's own personality. Kali is infinite and present at all times in every place. Sri Ramakrishna described his experience of cosmic consciousness thus. The Divine Mother revealed to me in the Kali temple, he's talking about the same experience, that it was she who had become everything. She showed me that everything was full of consciousness. The image was consciousness. The altar was consciousness. The water vessels were consciousness. The door sill was consciousness. The marble floor was consciousness. All was consciousness. I found everything inside the room soaked, as it were, in bliss. The bliss of Satchidananda, existence, consciousness, bliss, which is the essence of our own being. Existence, consciousness, bliss. Those are the three things that are eternal. They say in our own existence. I saw a wicked man in front of the Kali temple, but in him I also saw the power of Divine Mother vibrating. That is why I fed a cat with the food that was to be offered to the Divine Mother. I clearly perceived that the Divine Mother herself had become everything, even the cat. The manager of the temple garden wrote to Mathur Babu saying that I was feeding the cat with the offerings intended for the Divine Mother. But Mathur Babu had insight into the state of my mind. He wrote back to the manager, let him do whatever he likes. You must not interfere with anything with him. That which is Brahman is verily Shakti. I address that again as the mother. I call it Brahman when it is inactive, and Shakti when it creates, preserves, and destroys. It is like the water, sometimes still and sometimes covered with waves. And then also underneath Ma Kali is Shiva. Shiva is the substratum of awareness that underlies everything that is not, it has no interaction with Shakti and this, but everything is that as well. It's kind of a strange paradox, but Shiva is the unmanifest, the unchangeable consciousness. So Shiva at the Dakshineswar Kali temple lies on the 1,000-petaled silver lotus, which looms atop the altar of stone with steps in the front and to the right. So this is important. We were talking about the Kundalini, and the 1,000-petal lotus is actually shown there, but it's also the top the energy center. I'm not going to go through all the different differentiations of the chakras. But as Kundalini arises, there's an awakening of each center of consciousness. And as you go up, each ones are spiritualized, and your perception of reality is embracing that divine conception. And so you see more and more of the attributes of pure consciousness are yours, separately. So they say as you go up, you see more and more of the attribute of divine consciousness, divine expression of Saraswati. They say once you get to the heart, that bursts open with that divine love, and everything is light. And what Sri Krishna said when he got there, Ami, Ami. And so this is the heart is the first center where when that opens. It's the beginning of true spiritual awareness, they say. And as you go higher, you get closer. Once you start to see that, you start to define it more and more until you get to the point between the eyebrows, the third eye. And then you see clearly the self, but with separation. It's like a thin partition, they say. So this is why Sri Krishna was, where he was seeing the reality with a thin partition, and you become mad to go and to embrace it, but you find that it's always gone. The top of the head, the Shashara, the 1,000-petal lotus, that is where you merge. That's where samadhi occurs. You merge into that self. So there's not two anymore, there's only one. So instead of experiencing that bliss, that joy as an individual, you become one with that. And they say actually, bliss, ecstasy is the final obstacle to final realization, because you are absorbed night and day in this ecstasy and this bliss. Who wants to give that up, right? That's kind of cool. So it might take a long time to go beyond that, I suppose. So when we all get there, we'll have to tell each other, right? But the 1,000-petal lotus then is where that final surrender takes place. The final act of surrender, it says, to merge and become that. And then it's eternal. Then you never can be brought down, as they say again. And there's different ways. This is talking about the tantric, which is the Kundalini expression. And Sri Ramakrishna, after his experience of Kali in the temple, he went through the sadhanas of all the different yogas, especially Tantra, through the Bharavi, the nun that came and taught him Tantra after this. And then, of course, after that, he had Puri teach him the Advaita Vedanta, which I suspect he already knew. But so this actually happened after his experience of Ma, after she became a real living. But this is what it says here about the Tantra and the Kundalini. When a spiritual aspirant has formed a special relationship with Kali, she is no longer just an image in the temple. Her presence fulfills this person's being at all times. In a way, all religions prescribe methods for getting in touch with God. While the methods differ, the outcome is the same. For instance, the person practicing Tantra, in the end, reaches the same goal as the person practicing Vedanta. A tantric yogi sees the great mother present within his human body as the kundalini. She lies hidden by herself created ignorance, like a snake coiled and fast asleep in the Muladhara chakra at the bottom of the spinal cord. Through sadhana, the tantric awakens the mother and rouses her to go upward, flashing like a phosphorescent flame through the Sushumna's channel. She pierces the various chakras until she reaches the highest plane and unites with Shiva at the crown of the head. At this moment, the tantric experiences such supreme bliss that his mind cannot contain the small ego consciousness and becomes illumined. The tantric sadhana does not end there. The perfect realization of the mother only culminates when one experiences illumination in all planes, even the lowest. And that's very profound. I won't go further than that. But if we remember the story we read about Todapuri, he had that experience of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, where he was merged into that oneness. But if you see the world as a dream or an illusion, there's still duality. So perfect realization, as Sri Ramakrishna talks about it, is Vijnana, where not only do you see the ultimate in that unitive experience, but even all the illusory steps that we went through become Brahman. And then there's absolute unity. There's nothing to go down to. How can you fall? Because there's nothing to fall to. So this is the ultimate realizations. And it's beautiful because Sri Ramakrishna, really brought this out. They have Shankara was a great proponent of non-duality, but his path was always neti, this world's a dream. The reality is Brahman, I am Brahman. So you would say that over and over again. And so that was the path of absolute non-duality. And so they kind of poo-pooed all the lower expressions of divine searching. They felt you were just prelude to getting this final realization. So what Ramakrishna did was kind of showed the fuller embrace that the world too is Brahman, and you shouldn't just discard it. Because I think what happened was, and it's kind of interesting because in Shankara, at the very end of his life, he was very sick. And he didn't live that long, he lived to 33, right? And he was very sick and he always didn't see anything but Brahman. So he didn't, Divine Mother, all these things weren't an issue for him, like Todapuri. But they said there's a story where he was very sick and right at the end, well, he didn't die at this time, but he saw a little girl, Divine Mother, even after this illumination. And so there's stories of him realizing that also Brahman was in the world, all the world was Brahman too. So I don't think Shankara was lacking in final realization of this. I just think it wasn't played by his disciples with a lot of the commentaries are about that non-dualistic experience. So what Ramakrishna kind of did was, and if you think about it, think about what happened to India. It went from the most rich nation of the whole world to being a conquered and abject nation by almost so many people. Because the misinterpretation of Shankara's teaching was that the world wasn't real and therefore not important. And so that attitude kind of went into the culture where they didn't really respect the actual physical world as it needed to be as Brahman. And so this whole cycle of horrible abject poverty and subjugation and everything happened. And so what, seeing this expression from Sri Ramakrishna come, now you start to see, as Vivekananda said, India will rise from its ashes and become a very dominant nation again. And so that understanding of the misunderstanding is being realigned, and what Vijnana is very important to this final realization. But it's also important to the West too, because West didn't have any understanding of anything deep at all. So they had all the power of Shakti in the world because they were focused on it, right? So they weren't happy because everything is a mess. There are power struggles. There's hugely rich people and horribly poor people and suffering next to each other. So that's not the answer either, obviously. So it's this blending now. Both sides need to get together to understand the highest aspects of these teachings. But it's a beautiful thing that happened when Ramakrishna initiated this. Sri Vivekananda, the great spiritual beings, initiated the sharing of this wisdom, this opening of the time capsule that is India. I think the whole world needs to be part of this to have the full understanding of the depths of this wisdom. So it can't be just the property of India anymore, or needing to have just gods and goddesses, for example. but it has pure awareness and consciousness of the divine self. So this is the way it was in the highest stages. It was all understanding of these things. So there wasn't, symbols were needed. So this is that, okay? So we went from ma to ma to kind of, we're no longer only ma is. So we'll do one last chat, but is there any questions that you guys have on all of this stuff we've been talking about? Or things that, things that you thought were important that you want to express, or anything like that? Some time left, a couple minutes. Okay. Nothing?
I know, right?
It's like, what do you say,
Well,
right? Ma
I
calls
guess I
and,
really appreciate your deeper explanation of all the aspects of Ma. Because even though I've heard it so many times, you just made me think about it so much deeper. So thank you for that. And I still don't truly understand the right there, Kali,
Kalima?
with the
Shiva
person
underneath.
underneath. I need more to understand that a little bit better, the meaning of it, or the, like you said, the underlying.
That's a very deep, and that Murti, that image has so much profound wisdom because people forgot it. The only way that they could transmit it is by a visual image. People who weren't literate, or anybody can understand it. This book actually does a great job of that. I can
Okay.
give you just a little bit of a hint. Remember what we talked about? Shiva is that the pure awareness, the pure existence, consciousness, bliss, Satchitananda.
Right.
That is Shiva, or Brahman. They're the same
Okay.
things. So that is what we are. That is
Right.
the only thing that exists in eternity that's non-changing. That's
Yes.
eternal in that sense, in that way. So this is what Shiva is, okay? And so in India, it's separated to make it understood that that's what it is.
So is that Shiva on the bottom too?
That is Shiva.
Shiva is on the
That is
bottom.
Shiva.
Who's on the Kali's on the top?
Kali's the Ma.
Okay.
So she's dancing the dance of creation, and
Okay.
it's stated that he's laying prostrate because, of course, the Brahman is non-active. It's not active
Right,
in any
okay.
creation. It's just the awareness substratum underlying all of phenomena, but it's not influenced by it.
Okay.
It's not affected by it.
Right.
Okay, that's why but they also say creation is a cycle. So when or creation, Sri Krishna talks about this as a little seed pot, that Ma starts the dance of creation at the beginning of each new cycle. And so she dances, and all of these, the evolution of energies and worlds and all these things happen for millennia. But at some point, they go back into Brahman. They absorb. So she dances the dance of creation. And if you can see, her foot's just above his chest. As soon as her foot touches that chest, she absorbs back into Brahman again. All creation becomes reabsorbed for fresh creation. That's what Sri Krishna.
Oh, that makes so much more sense.
So this is the image of it. But it's kind of interesting because we talked about Kali. Sri Krishna said Kali is one with the highest Brahman.
Okay.
So if you think about that is what he's saying, is that not only is that awareness the ultimate freedom, it's who we are, it's what we are, it's what we want, it's our liberation.
Right.
But all of this nonsense is Brahman too.
Right.
There's no difference. It's one with the highest Brahman. So creation also, that's why he said this is a mart of joy. Imagine a mirth, the mart of joy at that realization. So even in the world, then, you can have this beautiful experience of creation and still be unitive, still have that awareness that all is Brahman, so there's no differentiation.
I couldn't agree more with that statement. I completely can connect with that statement. It just was the symbolism that I wasn't quite,
So they're actually one, and in some
Right, they're actually
traditions,
one,
in
right?
traditions, they're actually the same. Like Kashmiri Shaivism or South Indian Tamil, they have Nataraja, which is a combination of Kali, Shakti, and Shiva dancing the
Right.
dance of creation.
Okay.
So they kind of unify it. And that's why Swami Sarvapriyanandaji talks about Kashmiri Shaivism.
Okay.
And that's how they express it. They don't separate those two. And in South India, they don't either. Even though they worship Shiva separately, but they have Nataraja, which is both a dancing Shiva. So it's not Divine Mother, it's a dancing Shiva. They have Divine Mother too, they're Shakti as well. But it's more of a unified blend than this is kind of it's a blend too, obviously, to show us what the differences are. Because it's kind of hard to understand dancing Shiva before you understand the separate Kali and Shiva principle. So that's why I think it's really important to be able to dive deep into whatever form that's closest to your heart, Divine Mother, or to realize that you finally come face to face with your own awareness. They say, and that's what Ramana Maharshi always talks about, that at some point in sadhana, you just have to turn around and look within. That's what Vivekanandaji said too. He said, I was bowing to everything all over India. I was bowing, my forehead was bleeding from bowing to every image and, every form of God and everything all over. And he said, I found no peace. He said, I found a slight peace and then it would go away. He said, it wasn't until I turned within and looked within for that I found true peace. And so that's kind of a real deep expression of that whole ideal. At some point, we can go through all creation, having great karmas, punya, all these things, worshiping, having the beautiful connection with divine images of divinity. But at some point, you still have to turn within and find out who you are, because that's the source of all of it. So it's like the musk deer, this story of the musk deer, where it's intoxicated by this smell. It goes through all those forests trying to find the source of this intoxicating smell. It actually runs off a cliff to its doom because it's trying to chase this smell. It's actually in its navel. It's part of its glands that secretes this smell.
That is.
And that's one of the stories, of course, of an analogy, an illustration of that's what we're doing. We're going crazy looking for that divine intoxication, that smell. You can just see it. But you realize it's in riches. Okay, I'm rich. Then I die. I have this beautiful wife or husband or whatever it is. Then he dies or she dies or I die. It's always this thing. I have punya. I'm creating universes and then I'm gone. They say even the gods have a lifespan. Even the gods have karmic allotment that they're gods for that period of time, and then they are back into this world again. That's what it says. I'm not a brilliant scholar, but I see it seems real logical to me that any creation is not an eternal. It always dissolves and always changes. Creation, preservation, and destruction are all part of the same three things.
Right.
So nothing can change those laws. So once you realize that there's nothing to hold on to, and you don't care about anything, then everything becomes fine. It's like I can enjoy this, but I don't need it.
Right.
I can truly enjoy it. They say you can't enjoy any kind of food if you're addicted to it, or smoking, or whatever it is.
Right.
But you can truly enjoy it if you're not eating it.
Right.
I don't smoke and I don't eat
Right.
that kind of stuff. But the point is understandable.
Right. Totally. Yes.
So.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we just chant to Divine Mother? There's a song in there called Jai Shri Durga, but it's a Krishna Das song that I've kind of modified to include all of the elements of the Devi. So we start with Ma Kali, then we go to Ma Durga, I go to Ma Lakshmi, Ma Saraswati, and then Sardama to honor the Divine Mother of this order. So it's Om Aim, Jai Ma Kali, Jai Ma Durga, Jai Ma Lakshmi, and then Om Aim Saraswati, Om Aim Jai Ma Sardam. Okay? So we'll just chant that and then we'll finish. And thank you all for being here and coming. It's so much more fun when we have people here.
Yay!
Jai Ma Kali, Namaha Om Aim, Jai Ma Kali, Namaha Om Aim, Jai Ma Kali, Jai Ma Kali, Jai Ma Kali, Namah. Om Ai, Jai Ma Durga, Namah. Om Ai, Jai Ma Durga, Namah. Om Ai, Jai Ma Durga, Jai Ma Durga, Jai Ma Durga, Namah. Om Ai, Jai Ma Lakshmi, Namah. Om Ai, Jai Ma Lakshmi, Namah. Om Ai, Jai Ma Lakshmi, Jai Ma Lakshmi, Jai Ma Lakshmi, Om Ai, Saraswati, Namah. Om Ai, Saraswati, Namah. Om Ai, Saraswati, 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 Namah. Om Ai, Jai Ma Sharda, Namah. Om Ai, Jai Ma Sharda, Namah. Om Ai, Jai Ma Sharda, Jai Ma Sharda, Jai Ma Sharda, Namah. Thank you all. Simon, you all.
That song makes so much